daughter cut me off 5 years ago because of a misunderstanding, then demanded to move in after getting fired. When I refused, she blasted me online and turned F and F against me. 5 years ago, my daughter cut me off because of a miscommunication, then required that move and following my dismissal when I refused, accusing me online of being a family and friends are against me. Therefore, I'm 46, I possess a daughter, 22, who hasn't spoken to me 5 years ago, but lately contacted me once more since she needed my assistance, so I will refer to as Lily, is my exclusive as a child, and our bond was beautiful. Before 5 years ago, I will refer to my former spouse as my married Sarah, 45F. The person Sarah and I met in and began dating in our second year of college. Years soon after, we had our diplomas. We got married and had Lily, but the marriage did not endure long because we were just too dissimilar from one another. I became aware that we had moved too quickly. Hence, we decided to divorce when Lily was 2 years old, and we quarreled a many, and we thought it might be better if we split up for the benefit of the daughter, as it was unhealthy for her to be raised in such a poisonous circumstances, so we parted ways. But we continued to split Lily's custody, so although we got along well, the divorce was a reciprocal, and my spouse and I were essentially on an equal financial basis. Thus, there was neither child support nor alimony. All parties were friendly, and we were not pals. Yet we were okay. Lily was there for half of the month, half at her mother's house, half at mine, and it was a mutually beneficial agreement. I didn't have another marriage. Moment. But around 6 years prior, Sarah was married to her 2-year boyfriend. Liam, the spouse, had also been married previously and had 2 children. Daughter, who is younger, and about Lily's age, son is 2 years younger than his, was asked to the weddings, and everything was pleasant and warm. Her spouse appeared to be a kind man, and his children were quiet but always courteous. Seemed fine at first glance. But I observed that Lily seemed to be unhappy at both before the wedding, and when I questioned her, she informed me that she didn't appreciate the notion of being in her home with those children, and she continued by lament the annoyance of the two of them were, and how much she desired her mom had not wed this man. He was without a just to be clear, Liam is an issue, but only his child Lily was perpetually troubled sharing. But how I felt like I was speaking at the wedding, as if she was acting a little arrogant, and I informed her. So I made an effort to be kind, and I had to tell her, but I couldn't sugarcoat it. Thinking she seemed a little too entitled, and rather than winking at her mother's, she ought to be out there attending weddings. She was social and delighted for her mother not take that well, and became enraged with me. She avoided talking to me for the remainder of the day, which was the initial instance that I became aware of how much she disliked I debated it with several other students. Later on, Sarah informed me that she had observed a few times that whenever Liam visited and brought his, Lily would never work hard for her kids. To interact socially or even converse with them, she would shut herself inside of them. Room. Then remain there until everyone has. This was simply the situation when Liam arrived bringing his children. But when it was only him, and she didn't appear to mind, thought it was a little problematic because now, anytime Liam's children weren't with their mother, with whom they would reside, and Lily needed to be friendly with them. Otherwise, it would be pretty challenging for deciding that they should live together as a family. We intended to talk to Lily, but it didn't assist since she became enraged with accused both of us of being merely concerned regarding our family's appearance in the other children and not her emotions. Therefore, we made an effort to get her into treatment since Liam's children, as far as we knew, hadn't even addressed her with a word. But she seems to despise them already for utterly without cause. And to be sincerely, Lily has consistently exhibited problems, but it was never like this aggressive. Several complaints had been made concerning her at school, that she was being so impolite to other people that bringing them to tears with her manner of talk to them when she wasn't feeling it. Someone with whom she wasn't bullying would engage in poor behavior with those who, when I attempted to speak to her, she didn't like them. We had already tried counseling. Then for a bit as well, and the grievance was resolved. But with Liam and his children, we feared that she would return to that conduct, and he had no desire to that to occur, since naturally, no one would like to see their children harassed for without cause. Thus we attempted to send her to therapy, but she was considerably more recalcitrant than previously as a result of her being nearly an adult, and she continued to tell us that the reason she refused to attend was knew she was perfect and had no issues. I tried my most challenging, but Sarah and I couldn't make her leave, and eventually, we just gave up. More than just worrying how she would act around Liam's children and the impact this would have on Sarah's marriage, Lily and I were my concerns. Her actions going forward, as if it didn't get better, it might get worse, influence employment prospects and other things such a way. Therefore, I continued to ask Sarah, how? When Lily was at home, she would act, and when Liam's children arrived, she consistently informed me that she would disregard them and act quite cruelly toward whenever they attempted to speak with them. Hence, they largely stayed away from her, and her younger son looked frightened of her. Liam had been silent about it, but it was evident to her that he disapproved of this conduct at all. For roughly a year past, Lily left to attend college, and similarly did her stepsister. They visited several universities, so they weren't to communicate often, and they would only return to Lily. For the holidays would be with her for half the holidays, mother, and half of my companions. We made every effort to maintain Lily's conduct in order. But one day, she visited me the middle of the night, and it was the house was indeed Sarah's turn to hold her. Hence I was somewhat taken aback when she arrived and inquired about her situation, which she informed me she had opted to depart from her mother's residence forever because of her intolerance of, she told me Liam's kids weren't playing anymore, that his daughter was in her room all the time, reading, and she was confident that this was all a performance for the show. Her intelligence and how she could take it no longer. She was also furious over the reality that his daughter had been boasting about her improved GPA and having been discussing it with her father at the dinner table in an apparent effort to scratch her face and add that to his, the younger son, was a constant annoyance and appeared to be playing videos constantly, games with his pals, such that implied 2 or more young teenagers were always present. There were guys in their home, and she thought she no longer had any privacy with these grave charges, and I informed her of that. She was welcome to remain in the living room as She and her mother worked things out, although she became enraged with me as soon as I said that I was planning to discuss with her mother and inquired as to if I didn't trust her. So we had a little altercation over way, but in the end, she consented to let me to discuss with Sarah to resolve this, so that I called Sarah, who was unaware of that Lily had left the house covertly, because she had not said anything about it and it was quite late at night, so she chose not to even imagine she would act in such an item. But after I informed her about every charge that Lily had leveled, she informed me that none of it was against her, was accurate, and Lily was fabricating things to be angry about. The only thing Liam's daughter had mentioned because Liam had inquired about her grades concerning it, and it was by no means and tried anything, even if it was only informally bringing it up with her father in a typical individual does. And it was unrelated to what to do with Lily and the reading issue. Even I had encountered some difficulty in think that Lily's accusations that she was pompous merely to peruse, and Sarah verified for me that she has consistently been that manner, and even that didn't matter with relation to Lily. She was only thinking about herself because she sought an excuse to despise her stepbrothers, and in actuality, there were nothing to justify her, not even the younger son, and all of her remarks regarding him was only partially accurate. He did extend his pals over a few occasions, yet they made no sound at all, and neither did they exit their room so that there could be. Lily had no cause to believe that she had. Her home is no longer private, and all truthfully, it made logic since, as far as after I'd spoken with Liam and his children, it didn't seem possible that they would be the type of individuals who Lily attempted to portray them as. Upon ending the call, I was pretty let down because I was aware that Lily was lying, and all she wanted was to be herself. A negative light on her step-siblings since she despised them without cause, I thought. As parents, Sarah and I had fallen short, as she had developed into a highly, continually acting as though she was superior to everyone else. It was a tough choice, but I ultimately determined that I would need to speak with Lily and finally and for all assure her that she was unable to act out and accuse others simply of crimes. But I ultimately determined that I would need to speak with Lily and finally and for all assure her that she was unable to act out and accuse others simply of crimes for which they were not even at fault, of only because she found them offensive, as doing so was a terrible thing. And that was not how we had brought her up. Hence, she would like it or not, need to treat her step-siblings with civility at the absolute minimum and tolerate them throughout her residing with her mother, was upset when I told her this, incredibly enraged, and began yelling at me and said I was supporting the just because I wanted to get rid of others. Honestly, I have no idea where I've seen her. That originated from, as I had never acted in a manner which would make her felt that way, so I'd always attempted to. I tried my best to make her feel loved and cared for. Her first, so that she could charge when I tried to get rid of her. It was very bizarre. And it was also really painful, since I cherished my daughter, and she knew that I would do anything for her. The only action I refused to take: did you tolerate inappropriate behavior? Support it. As it was also, I must correct her and confirm that she was a kind person. Since that was all I was attempting to do, I tried to clarify it to her, but she did not stop yelling at me, and it didn't appear to be willing to not even hear me out, so I waited for her to descend, but she blasted out of the house without providing me with even an opportunity to justify my actions. Attempted to contact her again, since it was quite late, and I didn't want her to leave. Alone, returning home because it was also. Despite the weather and slick roads, I tried to reach her, but she didn't reply. Pursue her, but she had already taken her to automobile, and it was already moving when I went from my residence. Thus, I was alone. I was let down and had to return home. However, I attempted to text her to let her know, because all I wanted was for her to improve a human being. So naturally, I desired her to be in my presence. As she was my daughter, nevertheless, I discovered that she had blocked. That message didn't get through to me. I attempted to contact her after a short while, but even so, I didn't receive an answer when I asked Sarah over the phone if she'd reached. She informed me she had returned home safely, but she was unwilling to talk to me and had been angry. So the following day, I decided to visit Sarah so I could talk to Lily. But as soon as she noticed me, within the living room, she began tossing. She lost it and began yelling at the top of her lungs, and that I go. She didn't want to hear from her alone. Anything for which she refused an explanation, and she told me that she only wanted me to leave. Because she had no desire to do anything reconnected with me, and that I wasn't her father no longer. As I demonstrated to her that I wanted her out of my life and that I was merely attempting to get rid of her constantly, I tried to speak with her at that time. Despite her cries, but it was too excessive, and I had to depart. After that, I made a constant effort to speak with her day, and I would routinely see Sarah. However, the same thing consistently occurred. After a week, Sarah and I decided that I should take a little break. If Lily desired to speak with me at that time, most likely she would come to me directly. However, I would have to stay until then. Away, since it was becoming somewhat exhausting, I would visit everyone every day. Then, after that, Lily would stop speaking with me out from her room and begin to yell at anyone attempting to convey my viewpoint things to her. So I made the decision that I would wait to approach her till she had become more composed. As I had anticipated, come out to me on her own in at most, a few weeks or months. But I kept in touch with her, but she never disturbed me. Sarah continued to inquire about Lily, but it felt depressing since Lily had reportedly informed Sarah that she wished to never hear from me once more, and that she had had enough of me. She attempted to, "Could you assure me that everything will work themselves out in the end?" But years went by with nothing occurring. So I gave in the hopes of making amends with Lily. She completed college, and I anticipated her to at least tell me or extend an invitation to her commencement ceremony. But she failed, so I instructed Sarah to, on my behalf, let me congratulate her. But I never heard back on that either. And after a few years, she started her first job. But she didn't get in touch with me back then. I made an effort to move on from my situation. However, we were with my daughter while discussing. Thus, it was clear that challenging for me to forget about all of it. But I also had to show her respect. The decision, therefore, caused me to refrain from contacting her because I believed that she would speak with me directly. And up until then, all I could do would be get by with whatever it was that I remembered about her. Somewhat challenging, but I had to persevere it in some way. And then, 10 days ago, when Lily finally responded, she called me up, and I responded, unsure of what to anticipate, given that 5 years had gone by, and we hadn't exchanged a single word with one another. I, therefore, had no idea what she was going to explain, that she began by informing me that she received terrible news, that she had been let go from her position due to continuing with her complaint of insubordination regarding her employer, who seemed to be foolish, which is why she had declined to ignore her, and that's why she was dismissed. Given that this was her third offense and that the business could no longer put up with it, she had not altered at all. Since our most recent interaction, and that was unfortunate since, according to her disposition, only grew worse when she time, and I believe that to be the reason she was fired. I fervently desired to comment on it, but I resisted since I thought that she was increasing in intensity, so I let her to keep screaming about her supervisor, who it didn't even sound all that foolish. If I'm being sincere, once she informed him she was done talking about that this was not a recent occurrence that had occurred a few months prior. Previously, she had been searching for a job, but without any luck, since kind of everyone in her field knew regarding her disposition, and no one desired to employ her immediately. Thus, she was out of a job and was having trouble making rent. She has wanted me to for the previous few months. Allowing her to live with me will benefit her. For a few months after that, until she was back up on her feet, I was furious, considering that 5 years had gone by since our last conversation with one another, and she was yanking me from the blue, despite her acute awareness of the fact that I didn't get along with her. I didn't get along with her. At this moment, the least she could have, at the very least, offered me an apology for the way she had acted during those years back. But that was unquestionably much too far too high of expectations for my daughter, given how she acts most of the time. But I had believed that the most apparent option would be to speak with her mother. For something like this, because they were pleasant terms. So I questioned her about it, and she disclosed to me the reason why she wasn't currently residing with her mother occurred as a result of her prior inquiry regarding Sarah seemed to have turned it down. When I heard that, I was pretty surprised, since Sarah was the type of lady who would give her your unwavering support. And that's what she'd been doing up until now. She was sure would become enraged at Lily sporadically, but she refused to allow her when the chips were down and would be there to support her at all times. So I found it shocking that she was denying Lily permission to remain with her when she needed it. But before that, Lily explained it to me very quickly and said I was the reason she was unable to survive. With them was as a result of their home being already overrun with visitors, because the relatives of her husband had arrived at, could you spend some time with them? And there was not enough room for her there, as much as Lily would have been an excellent guest for Sarah. It was simply not feasible, which is why she had come to me to seek my assistance and mention me as her last choice, which is now up. Up until then, I remained open to consider allowing her to survive. Even though she hadn't expressed regret for anything, but after she called me her final option, and I was really furious that you failed to express things like that while requesting anything from someone, their assistance, particularly when that individual is someone you haven't even attempted to talk to for only the past 5 years, because her inflated ego was too great to manage the reality that perhaps not the everyone believes she is flawless, as she is, and someone did possess the bravery to tell her that's that she had an issue with me, since I tried to be sincere with her and make her feel better person, but she took it incorrectly, deliberately transformed it into something ugly, only due to her inability to accept at least some reasonably legitimate criticism. Now that I had anticipated an apology from me and make an effort to atone for the past, but no apology was offered. And in addition to that, she genuinely thought I might assist her out and then allow her to move in with me, making it, calling me her final hope, quite clear that she was unwilling to remain with me and would prefer to tow. Instead, she stayed with her mother. Thus, out of fury, I informed her that she wasn't greetings from my house, where she could look, sought a different area to reside, as I was only unwilling to assist her in any way, here in any manner, form, or manner. And she was so daring as to be angry when I informed her that I wasn't intending to house her. Thus, she needed a look, taking a stand for herself. She began yelling at, called me, and informed me that I was being an awful father once more, when she'd allowed me to make amends. The past handed to me in a perfect platter, and I reassured her that I was beautiful, being a terrible mother, since she was an even poorer daughter, and she somewhat deserved it. This, I ended the call before she could begin shouting at me once more, and I turned off her phone number since I didn't time to squander on her, and I simply desired to move on with my day. But after a few hours, Sarah began to call, as well as when I disregarded her during the first few calls. She did not cease. I disregarded the call until I answered it. The first few times since I was aware of that, I would be the target of her yell. Sincerely, Lily, I didn't need that. Immediately followed my yelling by her for being an awful dad. So I informed her that I had no interest in discussing it as soon as I responded. Sarah told me over the phone that I felt so terrible about myself and stated that I wasn't being self-centered. And considering the broader picture here, I couldn't even comprehend the significance of the image was because, in my opinion, it just it sounded as though they were making things up. For her awful behavior, thus we were a disagreement, and Sarah informed me that she showed no interest in conversing with me until I told our daughter I was sorry and chosen to house her. That hasn't occurred yet they continue to circulate, calling me insensitive, self-centered, and whatever. I've reached a place where I truly need to think about whether I am not being any of those things. I recognize my mistakes in this instance because, regarding myself, I responded in a manner that someone else would. Ida, for declining to house my daughter due to her, didn't say sorry to me. Hello. First of all, returning after over 3 days of creating my post, and I've arrived at the concluded that I did not violate any laws. Thus, I also made the decision, and it's pretty good, to give Sarah a call and let her know that she needed to stop it. As she had been letting every one of our mutual friends know that I was being self-centered by denying Lily stay with me so I could comprehend her, was agitated, and that was entirely her choice, but she was unable to proceed. Speaking poorly of me when I hadn't even attempted anything and anticipated me being all right, that was just not. I informed her that it was acceptable to me. But then she became enraged with me for felt that was a rather stupid action, asking me to give her a call 10 days later for thing. But I didn't consider it to be significant. To give her a call and discuss our daughter, yet it seems that I thought it was more crucial to ensure that my reputation wasn't destroyed among our buddies, since I informed her of my actions, saying that it was as a result of her outright lying. Concerning me personally, and only disclosing things from people that she knew would destroy my picture while disregarding everything else, similar to what Lily had said and done years prior, she attempted to advise me to mature and give up on having such a breakdown over issues that occurred 6 years ago. And I must put it behind you because it was only no longer as necessary. And it's pitiful of me to continue to harbor that and make use of it as a justification for not to assist her while she was obviously in need of. I was aback to discover that she was the one expressing this, since it was previously indeed took place. She was on my side, although, as of late, she seems to be just nothing major, and I'm not going to forget anything. Return my time and it's all Lily's fault. Hence, I believe she ought to accept the repercussions of her behavior, since it's a crucial lesson to be learned, and I cannot assist her till she expresses regret to me after I've been really informed of my terms. And if possible, if you handle it, I'll be fine. If not, still, it's their loss, not mine, so I have nothing to be concerned about. I even gave Sarah a call since I desired for her to cease speaking nonsense about me to my pals. And she was the one who raised every concern. The details regarding Lily and myself and our attempts to pretend to be a psychologist or anything, that didn't work out well, and it wasn't my fault. For her, but that's the occurred. And if she stops speaking now, that's fantastic about me. And if she doesn't, that's her fault, and I won't do that. Call her no more, as I have nothing to say. I have nothing further to say to her or Lily. I would like to extend this upgrade to hello. So I just gave Sarah a call to let her know that she needs to cease discussing with me to my pals and attempting to destroy my picture before them. And for some time, little did, but she didn't do any of that. I am aware that Lily and her were just getting ready for a more serious assault on me, and that occurred a few hours ago. I began receiving numerous calls, and many of my friends texted me, and they were all informing me that I should visit Lily's social media account to view what Sarah and she owned, shared about me. I realized right away that this may hardly be a positive development, and as soon as I saw their message, my heart fell upon hearing what they had just spoken. The worst things that are possible envision someone, and the worst. The majority of my family members were discussing how they had known throughout all of their lives, worried I would be an inadequate father and didn't trust me. Not even a handful of my friends concurred with the information that had stated in the article, and it truly, my heart was broken because I believed I was amicably with these individuals, but not, and I was depressed. That Lily, and this was the path that Sarah had decided to accept it. Since it was pretty theatrical and needlessly violent, that post broke my heart. And I spent several minutes crying. After perusing that post, as it was harsh, to put it mildly, and they truly ripped into me, calling me every disparaging term you can think of. Even my daughter said that a portion of some acquaintances had no fathers at all, and she genuinely thought they were far more fortunate than she is, since at least their fathers weren't wrong. That's intended to cause pain, and the goal of that post was intended to offend me, so I would claim to have been successful in doing so. But I chose to walk the extra mile and not at all reply to the post, since I refused to give any of that any dignity. So I just turned them off and continued my day. And I also shared with everyone, my friends, that I was unwilling to hear from anything regarding them anymore, as they were allowed to carry out their desires, and I was also. They're not my relatives, no longer. And I'd like not to hear everything they feel like saying about me. Update 3. I got an SMS message recently from Sarah, who informed me Lily had determined that she would relocate from the city due to a lack of employment chances no longer exist for her, and she wanted to stop wasting her time. By then, she had already secured a rather strong position in a different business and was relocating in a few days. So they were hosting a farewell celebration for her, and she desired for me to be invited. It's been over 3 months after I broke up with them, and thus far, it's been fantastic. So I don't really want to return to that existence for this reason. I turned down the offer and blocked my former spouse's number, as I currently was no longer communicating with Lily, There was indeed no justification for me to go on. When I talked to her, I am a lot gladder